Hey, what's up everyone? It's your girl Brain Shanae, and today I'll be sharing with you my January wrap up. Okay everyone, if you are new to my channel, welcome. If not, welcome back. January was a great reading month for me. I think I did a great job. I know it's not as much of many books I read as others, but I believe I read a total of 15 books, or actually I read 16 books. So yeah, I'm gonna count that one, but yes, I read a total of 16 books. I did a mid-month wrap up of January, which I'll leave above so you can check out the first half of the month of what I read. And so we're going to continue on reading, what I read the second half of January. And so the first book that I read, which really made me cry, and it was such a good book, and that is You've Reached Sam. This is by Dustin Tao. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. This was a very touching and sad book. We're following a girl named Julie, where she's with pretty much her boyfriend named Sam, but then Sam gets in a car accident and then he passes away. And so during this, and then before we even know what happened to him, we're pretty much at the very beginning of when she realizes she lost her best friend and also her boyfriend, the love of her life. And she pretty much, as she's going through this time of grief and mourning, she's pretty much, I would say, stepping away from people that knew Sam or was very close to Sam, not being around them, pushing them away. And then out of nowhere, she gets a phone call, and it's Sam. And she's like, what? And Sam was like, yeah, this is, I never got to have my final conversations with you. There's a lot of things that we need to discuss. And she's like, what? So she was confused. And during this whole time, as she's talking to Sam on her phone, which I guess has a connection with him and him and Julie. So they have this connection of their phones, which is why he is able to reach her. And during this time when she's talking to Sam, she's trying to make sure, she's trying to not let people know that she's talking to Sam. And so during this time, she's talking to Sam's best friends and also her best friends, and also trying to, and his family, because during her time of mourning, she didn't want to be around anybody. But then his family and his best friends was also confronting her about the situation, how she didn't really handle it properly, and how she had to pretty much hear what people had to say. And some people blamed Julie, and Julie also blamed herself for Sam's death. And then come to find out, this book really deals with a lot of grief. And I know a lot of people have lost a lot of people during these past couple of years, or just in general has lost loved ones. And I've lost loved ones, and it's very hard. And I feel like everybody has their own way of mourning and grieving. That is to not talk to people and just be, by yourself, and just, stay away from people because you're not a people person at that moment. You don't want to be bothered. Other people try to talk to people. There's so many ways of how people grieve and mourn. And I feel like it is okay to do that. I know when my grandmother died, it was very, I'm not trying to be emotional now. It was very, very hard for me. And when you go to a funeral, especially when I went to the funeral and I went up to the casket to say goodbye to her, sometimes I feel like I shouldn't have done that, because that's not how I see my grandmother. That's not how she looked when I last saw her. And I just felt like, that's not my grandmother. This is not my grandmother. I recognized her, but she was so different, and she died from lung cancer. And it was a very hard time for me. My grieving got really bad, and it started to go into depression and all this other things coming up, and a lot of people didn't realize it. But yeah, I was mourning. And it literally took, who is now my husband, it took him to save me and to actually see me going through it. I was very quiet. People didn't notice, but I was super quiet. So quiet, especially throughout high school. And he was the only one that actually noticed. Out of everybody, out of my family, out of my parents, everybody noticed. And I really love this book because it, like I said, it talks about, and it's how everybody's different with their grieving process. And with Julie, actually saying her final words to him and how she's sorry for what happened. And Sam was like, you know, it's okay, but I still want you to live your life. I don't want you to stop your life just because I'm no longer here with you. And she needed that. She really needed to have the last words with him, because technically she never did. And so they had one last phone call. And also, I think he also was able to release and, you know, go where he needed to be, you know. And she also took all that in, and she started to move on with her life and actually living her best life as the best she possibly can. So I loved this book so much. I gave it a 5 of 5 stars. I read it, I listened to it on audiobook, and I love the cover of this book so much. I want a physical copy, to be honest. But I don't know, it'll be down the line, because there's so many other books that I'm trying to get a hold of. So it's like, I believe it's on my wish list on Amazon. So I do have that. So, or I think it is. If not, I'll definitely add it so somebody else can get it for me. But anyways, yes, I love this book. A 5 out of 5 stars for You've Reached Sam by Dustin Bow. So next book, sorry, I got really emotional because that, yeah. Okay, so the next book is Ashes of Gold, which I also have the physical copy, by JL. I did a whole review about this book, so I'm not even going to rant, because I will continue on ranting about how good this book is, but I will leave that review up above in the cards so you can check it out, and you'll hear a lot of how much I love this book and how much Black girl magic is within this book itself. So yes, definitely check out my review after you watch this video. So we have that, Ashes of Gold. Next book, I had read this at the very end of January, because I was pushing it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have one more day left to finish this book. So literally I was 50% in already, but then it was like January 31st. So I had a whole, like, so many pages to go to finish this book. So literally that whole day I was like, all right, I gotta finish this book today. And it's so long. But that is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. This is the Crescent City series by her. This is the new adult series that she just started, and also the second book will be coming out later in February, which I believe is February the 15th. But I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I gave it a 4 because there's so much. It's like so much information within this book itself. And I will say, if you don't pay attention to that info, you can get lost and get completely confused. Like, literally, I wish this book had footnotes, because this book deals with a lot of mystical creatures. It deals with archangels, fae, wolves, vampires, witches, demons. It deals with a lot of that. And I know, like, in the very beginning of the book, it does have a map of Lithuania. And then also it tells you about the 4 houses of Midgard, where, you know, you have House of Earth and Blood, which is for shifters, humans, witches, ordinary animals, and many others. And then you have House of Sky and Breath, which is Malakim, which are angels, fae, elementals, sprites, so on and so forth. And then you have House of Many Waters. It's river spirits, myrrh, water beasts, nymphs, kelpies. It goes on. And then you have House of Flame and Shadow. You have reapers, wraiths, vampires, draki, dragons, necromancers. So literally you have all those different people within this book in itself, which is why there's so much information, which, like I said, I wish there was footnotes where we meet like a vampire or something that tells you what house they're in, or, you know, so that would have been amazing to do. But overall, we're following a girl named Bryce, and she lives with her best friends, Danica and Connor. But then out of nowhere, she comes home, and her friends are dead. They're like ripped in shreds, into pieces. Like, they have pieces of them just in a pile as she comes back home from partying. And so literally she was mourning, and then she actually gets attacked by she gets also attacked by a demon, but she was saved. But she had an injury doing so because it pretty much cut her leg. So then after that, 2 years later, she's pretty much doing whatever she can to survive. And then here comes Hunt, who is a fallen archangel, who's pretty much a slave, and he has a debt to pay, which the debt was first like 10,000 something of death people he had to kill in order to be freed. But then when he was working with Bryce, the main character, he had to kill like 10 10 people. It was something like that. So they're working together. They're trying to figure out who murdered Danica and the pack, and then also who had murdered these other people that had just started coming up. So literally 2 years later, we have the same similar murders happening to somebody else that happened to Danica and the pack. So they're working together, trying to figure stuff out. And then a lot of things come into play. And she is also a fae. Bryce is a fae. And her dad is like the top fae or whatever. And she has a brother named Rune. And, you know, her father looks down on her because she's half fae, half human. So they considered her like, you know, a mixed breed. And so she's looked down upon for that. So she's dealing with that. But she's also dealing with trying to find the killer. And during that time, her and Hunt start coming together. I would say for this is like enemies to lovers, because at first they could not stand each other. Then they got closer and closer since they were working together, and they started to fall for each other. But in the process, there's been a lot of lies or people not telling the truth. Like Bryce didn't tell him about who her father is, and Hunt didn't tell her about how he sort of knew who killed Danica, stuff like that. He knew certain information and he withheld that from her, and she did the same thing with Hunt. And then she also was able to find out who really killed her, and I did not see it coming because there's so many characters in this book, so you really don't know who's the killer. And then you're like, what? And then out of nowhere, Bryce is the savior of the city. And the only reason why she doesn't show her powers at the very beginning, because when she was attacked by that demon after Danica and her pack was killed, she had an injury, right? And so the demon had put like venom in her body, so it suppressed her power in a sense. And then once she met like a witch or something to take out that venom, her powers were no longer suppressed. So she literally was the savior of everybody, and her powers were even greater than her father alone. So she's now become a threat to not only her brother, who he really loves his sister, so I really don't think he would betray her. But really, I think her dad is gonna come for her. Like, all jokes aside. But this book was really good. But like I said, it's really long. Like, the last book I read by Sarah J. Maas was A Court of Silver Flames. And that was huge. I did a rant about that book, which I'll leave that up in the cards. But it was huge. I'm like, Sarah, do you really need all these pages in your books? Like, who is editing your books? Like, come on, you could literally have made it. I would say you could do at least 400 or 500 pages, but you went all the way to 800 pages. That's all I gotta say. But anyways, I really enjoyed this story. I'm going to continue on reading this series, which I think is House of Sky. Lord, don't quote me. I think it's House of Sky and Breath, which is, like I said, it comes out on February 15th. Actually, here is the cover of that book as well, and it looks beautiful. It's blue, which is my favorite color. But yeah, so I will continue on reading the series. I really enjoyed this book, just too dang long. But other than that, it was great. I enjoyed the journey that we were on with this new world. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars for House of Earth and Blood. And then the next book that I read is Flowers for the Sea. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This is by Zen E. Rocklin. It was definitely different. It's a little bit gruesome. It really talks about, childbirth and stuff like that, also for Black women. But we mostly follow Araxi. Hopefully I'm saying her name correctly. And they're on this ship, pretty much like an ark, and she's pregnant. And she's pretty much the outcast, but also she is her people's hope as well, because she's pregnant, because a lot of her people weren't able to, were having content warnings as well. We're having miscarriages, and she's the only girl who has kept her pregnancy, and she's able to have the baby full term. So she is the hope, but there's a lot of things going on in this book, and I know there's a lot of mixed reviews I have seen, but I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it was a 4 out of 5 stars. It's definitely different from anything I have read. But I enjoyed this. I loved Roxy. She was even thinking about if she really wanted to be a mother, because all this, they made her, I don't know. She just didn't know if she really wanted to be a mother or not. And when she held her daughter for the first time, then she's like, oh my gosh, this is my baby and stuff like that. So I love that aspect, but I did understand Roxy very well. And overall, this was a great book. I'm glad that I did finally read it. I've seen a lot of people have it on their TBRs. I actually listened to it on audiobook, which it was a great read, and it was a fast read. It was only like 2 hours, I believe. But like I said, I really enjoyed it. I know some people didn't, but I liked it. So, I mean, if you like books like this, I definitely would recommend it. But yeah, we have Flowers for the Sea by Zinni Rockland. And like I said, 4 out of 5 stars. Now, we're going to get into this book right here, Diarrhea Blood. And this was on Goodreads too, like the Goodreads finalist. It didn't win, but it was like the second. It was like runner up. Of course, I gave it a 5 stars for this book. I love this so much. This is following the wives of Dracula, but they never say his name in this book at all. And we're following Constanza. She's like one of the main characters in the book. And we also have Magdalena, and we also have Alexei. And she was like in the medieval times, I believe. She was like a peasant. Yes, a medieval peasant. And she was attacked, but Dracula saved her, so she was his love. And she's like, wow, okay, so you only are loyal to me, you know, I'm your only wife, you're the love of my life. But then he brings on Magdalena, and so, you know, Constanza was a little confused about this as well. And, you know, she was like, you know what, it's fine, I guess it's okay for him to have 2 wives. But then he also brings on Alexei. And he gets all his wives and his love affairs from different countries. And throughout this time, Constanza is starting to see a pattern when it comes to Dracula, and how he wanted to keep them in house. Dracula didn't want them to really live life, even though they have an immortal life. But he made it so dreadful. Like I know Magdalena was suffering. She's like, I have this immortal life and I'm not doing anything with it. Like, why am I here? And she, you know, she was living in sorrow. And Constanza really, like I said, was studying everything and every action that Dracula was doing. And he was very manipulative. So manipulative. Like, he didn't want to do anything. It's like he had them on a leash, to be honest, quite honest with you. And it's just, it not only is a telling about Dracula and his brides, but it also happens in reality too, where, you know, you have women who fall for some men or whatever, and the men manipulate them. And, you know, some women don't realize it until later on, down the line, later on. And Constanza started to actually add it all up like centuries later. You know, she's been with him for quite some time, and she now understood, like, he was just a manipulative man. And she, you know, she started doing her research on how to pretty much destroy Dracula and kill Dracula, because she had enough. So did Magdalena, so did Alexei. They all had enough of him. So they found a way to do so. And then after they got rid of Dracula, they were able to live their best lives. And, you know, they separated, of course. And you know what? They said, you know, one day we'll see each other again. And we're destined to see each other again. So they went their separate ways. I know Alexei had gone to America, I think New York, I'm not sure. He went to America. I don't know where Constanza went. And I think Magdalena went to Rome. I'm not sure. I don't remember. Let me know down below in the comments where they all ended up. But like I said, overall, a 5 out of 5 stars for Diarrhea Blood. I'm glad that I read this. I definitely will read this. I'll read the next book, whenever that comes out. I just really love this. And I'll even read the synopsis. So it says, a lyrical and dreamy reimagining of Dracula's brides, A Diarrhea Blood, is a story of desire, obsession, and emancipation. Saved from the brink of death by a mysterious stranger, Constanza is transformed from a medieval peasant into a bride fit for an undying king. But when Dracula draws a cunning aristocrat and a starving artist into his web of passion and deceit, Constanza realizes that her beloved is capable of terrible things. Finding comfort in the arms of her rival consorts, she begins to unravel their husband's dark secrets. With the lives of everyone she loves on the line, Constanza will have to choose between her own freedom and her love for her husband, but bonds forged by blood can only be broken by death. Even that synopsis would want you to read it. I would read this multiple times. It was that good. And it's not that long of a read either. Like, I love this book. I'm so glad that I got a copy of it. But I also listened to it on audiobook as well. So I would do some hybrid reading, and I hybrid read it. So I'm glad that I did that, especially hearing the voices of Constanza, Magdalena, Alexi. It was just really, it brought me into the book and the story even more. It made me think about Dracula, like, okay, Dracula saved her life, so okay. And then later on, many years with him, it's like I started to catch on too. But yeah, love this book. A 5 out of 5 stars. Love this so much. If you haven't read it, you definitely should read this book. So there's that. Now the next book that I read is One True Loves by Elise Bryant. This is her second book. She also had written Happily Ever Afters, which was her first book that was released the beginning of last year in 2021. In this book, we're following Lenore, who pretty much doesn't know what she wants to do with her life, but her family pretty much telling her that she needs to go to college and she can't go undeclared or undecided because you need to have a direct path to your future. And she even said, Lenore says in the book, like how her parents are the embodiment of Black excellence. So they have high expectations for Lenore. Lenore loves to do art and stuff, and they were downplaying her art and saying she needs to get something real, like a real job, like a lawyer or doctor, stuff like that. And she was pressured to pretty much have her future planned out, which life is not like that. Things happen so unexpectedly. So it's just like how her family wanted her life to be planned down to a T. I thought that was ridiculous. But also during the very beginning of the book, she's pretty much falling for these wrong guys. Like, she pretty much got played. Like, especially the first guy in this book, she thought she was with him, she had sex with him, and so, but then he ended up going with somebody else to prom. So she pretty much got played. She got played like twice. And she just had just bad taste in boys and men. And so as that happened, then she goes on this European cruise with her family, her brother and her mom and dad. And then she starts to meet a new family named Alex. And during this time when she's on the cruise, she doesn't want to be with anybody. She just gave up on love. She's like, I can't deal with love no more. Obviously, there's nobody out there for me, so I'm just done with it. But she finds Alex and she falls for him. And then she also pretty much tells her parents that she doesn't want to go to college. She pretty much wants to take a gap year to figure out what she wants to do with her life. And that was a big step for Lenore. She was very scared to what her parents pretty much was going to say to her. Because her older brother, he had these their parents had high expectations for him. And he started to have bad anxiety, and panic attacks because of that. And they were pressing him to be a lawyer and stuff like that. And come to find out, he didn't pass a test or whatever because he was trying to get his mental health together. And they didn't know that until pretty much him and Lenore confessed to their parents what was going on, and how the pressures of, how they were telling him, you're Black, you have to work 10 times harder to be successful. So it deals with the talk of Black excellence. And she they just couldn't take it anymore. But she did start falling for Alex. But the thing with this book is I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars due to the fact that there wasn't really a lot of romance within this book. And that's what I was looking for. There is some of it. I mean, we have enemies to lovers type of trope in here, but it mostly was Lenore in this book was mostly dealing with Lenore and her family dynamic, and what her family was trying to convince her to do, what she needed to do when she was planning her future and her life and college and so on and so forth. There wasn't a lot of romance. And that really deterred me, because I was debating, either I give it a 3 out of 5 stars, but I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I really expected a little bit more, since this is Elise's second book. But I did like it. I love the premise of the book. It wasn't pretty much not the romance aspect of it, but I did love the fact that Lenore began to have the courage of coming up to her parents and telling her, she doesn't want to go to college just yet because she doesn't know what she wants to do with her life yet. She wants to do stuff with art. And yes, I didn't like the fact that her parents downplayed her abilities, because her art is fantastic and they really don't feel like it's a real career, but it really is. And I'm glad Lenore had the courage to do so, along with her older brother, to confront with them about how he was getting panic attacks and anxiety. And I also think that also deals with mental health. Like, our mental health is the top priority, and you know, and I know you want to please everybody, but your mental health is number one, period. So I also love the fact that it brings up mental health, and you know, people have anxiety, and you know, how you bring on that anxiety towards people. So I love that aspect. But like I said, I really wanted more romance. It didn't really give me that, but it gave me something else, which was good. Was a good thing. But it's premised as like a romance, you know, like a teen romance, but that wasn't really the case. So that's why I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. But I did love the cover, and I did love how they were traveling to Italy, all across Europe. So I love that aspect. I got to travel a little bit. It does like mention like Jasmine Guillory and like Alyssa Cole in this book too. And it also mentions, like, it doesn't say the name, but you figure out what the movie they were talking about, and it was the Lizzie McGuire movie. Because Lenore's best friend was like, you should go to the trivia fountain, like that one book that had the girl meet this guy named Paolo, and, you know, throw 2 coins, you know, behind your back and stuff like that, the trivia fountain when you go to Rome. So that was cute. But overall, 3.5 out of 5 stars for One True Loves by Elise Bryant. Next book is a kid's book. It's a board book. It's Cat's First Baby. This is by Natalie Nelson. My kids love this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars because my son and my daughter read to me with this book. They really loved it. They loved the first book. It was A Dog's First Baby. So this is the second book. And we actually enjoyed it. I love this book. It's really cute. Yeah, so I gave that book a 5 out of 5 stars. And then the next book that I read, which was so powerful, and it makes you realize certain things, and that is Ain't Burned All the Bright by Jason Reynolds and artwork by Jason Griffin. You know, let me go ahead and read the synopsis first, so that way you get a gist of what I'm about to tell you. But of course, it's 5 out of 5 stars for this book. It says Jason Reynolds using 3 long sentences. So there's 3 long sentences in this book. And it says, and Jason Griffin using 300 pages of a pocket-sized moleskin. Have mind melded this fierce, vulnerable, brilliant, terrifying, what is wrong with humans, hope-filled, hopeful, tender, heartbreaking, heart-making manifesto on what it means not to be able to breathe, and how the people and things at your fingertips are actually the oxygen you most need. 3 long sentences, run-ons, of course. And this book is very impactful. It talks pretty much about how we're living in the pandemic right now, and we have these oxygen masks, and we need to learn to take a breath. We need to breathe. Breathe in, breathe out. And I love this because this book makes you think. This all how it impacts people's lives, especially in the black community. It brings up a whole lot. It also brings about, you know, during the year 2020 with George Floyd. It brings all that in just in 3 long sentences, which is phenomenal. Jason Reynolds kills it every single time with his books. And I just love this book. So impactful, so inspiring. I also love the art as well in this book. It's so powerful. And I really and for you to really understand it, I really suggest you pick this up and read it. I also read it to my children out loud. I even read it again out loud to my husband. For this book, I wanted it to read it out loud because it was just beautiful. Like on the first page, it says breath 1. And I'll just read a little snippet. It says, and I'm sitting here wondering why my mother won't change the channel, and why the news won't change the story, and why the story won't change into something new. Instead of the every hour rerun about how we won't change the world, or the way we treat the world, or the way we treat each other, and my brother won't look up from his video game. Even when I put my hand over the screen. Even when I put my hands on his, even when I turn my elbow into a fist and punch the bendy big knuckle into his ribs to try to knock his heart awake. And he just groans and ignores me and don't even look up at the woman on the news saying another woman has just been. So literally, and it says, and then both of them are talking about a kid my age. who couldn't breathe. And my mother's head rocks and swivels east to west like the old fan pushing thick heat around this house. And she wipes weary from her eyes, still glued to the no good, glued to the high definition glare of low definition life. And I wonder what she sees in it all, and even question if maybe it's me or my brother or my sister. And my sister talks to her homegirl through the screen of her phone like it's the screen of the front door. And they talking about a protest, which is, like I said, George Floyd. And how they heard this and that. This being people from everywhere and taking to the streets. Like, so much stuff was happening, especially in this past couple of years, and we never got to take a breath and a breather to actually see what is happening around us, what is going on with your community, with your family, especially the Black community. And it just, like I said, it really makes you think. This was very impactful. I really enjoyed this book to the T. I will read it over and over again because it gives me life about certain things, and it makes me look at life in a different perspective. So a 5 out of 5 stars, and love this book wholeheartedly. Loved it so much. And then last but not least, we have a little picture book that I read to my kids, and they'll read it to me now and again. And that is Just a Snowman. It's by Mercer Mayer. Of course, I gave it 5 stars, 5 out of 5 stars, because it's a kid's book and my kids love it, especially when it comes about snow days and making snowmen. Literally every time I read this, they're like, when can we make a snowman? And I'm like, when there's enough snow on the ground for it. And we haven't had that big of a snowstorm, thank God. But we are in the middle of probably having a ice storm, which is great, I guess. So literally just a couple minutes ago, my daughter's school, it's 3 o'clock. And they literally called me saying that there will be no school tomorrow due to the weather conditions that'll be happening. And literally the news also brought to our attention, there may be possibilities where we won't have electricity. So literally my husband is also ordering firewood. I got some lighters and stuff because I have tons of candles. So that'll be lit if we don't have electricity. And, and since it's going to be really cold upstairs, we're all going to be downstairs together. But yeah, so we're preparing for that storm. I know across the country there's a lot also dealing with that as well, snowstorms, ice storms, so hope everyone is safe and stuff and staying warm. But yeah, my kids love, sorry, I sort of ranted on about that, but my kids love snowmen, and hopefully eventually we will make a snowman together. I think that'll be fun. But like I said, there needs to be enough snow on the ground for that. But like I said, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, and my kids loved it, and I also loved it too. But that is it. That is my January wrap up. Like I said, it was a really good reading month. I loved all these books I have read. I don't regret anything. I haven't DNF'd a book, thank the Lord. Every single book that I've read this month was good. Was really good. I loved it. But yeah, like I said, that is my January wrap up. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please, please, please give me a thumbs up. Also hit that subscribe button, that bell to be notified when I upload more videos in the future. But thank you so much for watching, you guys, and please stay healthy and stay safe. See ya.